The cargo bay of the Horizon's Edge hummed with the familiar thrum of recycled air as Jixon Torres wiped grease from his hands. 3 months into a deep space freight run, and the monotony was starting to wear on him. That's when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong on a human cargo vessel, a chirp. Soft, almost avian, but with an underlying resonance that made his bones vibrate. "What the hell?" Jixon muttered, following the sound past stacked supply crates. Behind a cluster of medical supplies destined for the Kepler colony, something moved. Something small, scaled, and definitely not human. The creature was no bigger than a house cat, with iridescent scales that shifted from deep crimson to molten gold. Membranous wings, too small for flight yet, were tucked against its serpentine body. But it was the eyes that caught him, intelligent, ancient, and currently fixed on him with unmistakable curiosity. "You've got to be kidding me," Jixon breathed. "A stowaway?" The creature chirped again, tilting its head. Then it did something unexpected. It bounded forward with the clumsy enthusiasm of a puppy, tail whipping back and forth. Jixon couldn't help but grin. "Well, you're a friendly little guy, aren't you?" Over the next 2 weeks, Jixon kept the creature, which he'd started calling Ember, hidden from the ship's AI monitoring systems. It wasn't easy. Ember had a voracious appetite and an even more voracious curiosity. The hatchling would chase laser pointers across the bay floor, pounce on loose bolts, and curl up in Jixon's lap during his off shifts, purring with a sound like distant thunder. "You're definitely not from Earth," Jixon said one evening, scratching behind Ember's developing horns. "But you're way too cute to be dangerous, right?" Ember responded by belching a small plume of smoke, then sneezing in apparent surprise at his own abilities. Jixon laughed. "Okay, maybe a little dangerous." What Jixon couldn't know, was that 3 parsecs away, the Galactic Federation Council was in absolute chaos. Commander Elsa of the Cathara diplomatic fleet stood before the Federation Assembly, her translator struggling to convey the panic in her multi-tonal voice. Her species, the Cathara, resembled what ancient humans might have called dragons, massive, intelligent, and apex predators of their home system. But where humans saw fantasy, the galaxy saw one of its most powerful and proud species. "The Air Prince is missing," Elsa declared, her crest flaring with distress colors, stolen from the royal incubation chamber during the ceremony of first fire. "This is not merely a crime. This is an act of war." The assembled representatives erupted into concerned murmurs. The Cathara were founding members of the Federation, their military might unquestioned, their honor legendary. The theft of a royal hatchling was unprecedented. "All trade routes in Sector 7 are to be locked down immediately," decreed High Arbiter Zexthal, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's lights. "No vessel passes without full inspection. Find the Air Prince. The Cathara dynasty must continue." Elsa's tail lashed with barely contained fury. "And when we find those responsible, they will learn why our species once ruled 12 systems unchallenged." The Horizon's Edge dropped out of hyperspace at the Kepler transit station, completely unaware that they were now in the center of the largest military mobilization the Federation had seen in a century. "Captain Torres, this is Federation Control." A clipped voice came through the comm. "Prepare for immediate boarding and inspection. Do not attempt to leave the area." Jixon's blood ran cold. "Inspection? For what?" "All vessels are being searched. Comply or be fired upon." In the cargo bay, Ember had grown noticeably in 2 weeks, now the size of a large dog. The hatchling sensed Jixon's tension and whimpered, smoke curling from his nostrils. "It's okay, buddy," Jixon whispered, though his mind raced. He'd violated about 15 quarantine protocols by keeping Ember aboard. But something in his gut told him this was bigger than smuggling charges. The airlock hissed open. 6 armed Federation troops entered, followed by a towering figure that made Jixon's breath catch. She was massive, easily 3 meters tall, covered in scales that gleamed like polished armor, with wings that brushed the cargo bay ceiling. Her eyes, ancient and fierce, scanned the bay with predatory precision. Commander Elsa had personally joined the search of this sector. Then she froze. Her head snapped toward the cluster of crates where Jixon stood protectively in front of Ember. "Impossible," Elsa breathed, her voice a reverberating growl. The troops raised their weapons. Jixon raised his hands, stepping aside to reveal the hatchling. Ember chirped, that same friendly sound, and bounded forward toward Elsa with tail wagging. The massive Cathara dropped to her knees, and Jixen saw something he never expected to see on an alien dragon's face. Tears. Air Prince Zekthar, Elsa whispered, extending a clawed hand. Ember, Zekthar, nuzzled against her palm, purring. She looked up at Jixen, her expression unreadable. Human, explain. Now. Jixen told her everything, finding the hatchling, feeding him, playing with him. As he spoke, he watched Elsa's expression shift from fury to confusion to something like wonder. You played with him? She asked slowly. The heir prince of the Cathara dynasty. You treated him like a pet? I didn't know he was important. Jixen protested. He was just a scared little guy who needed help. Elsa stared at him for a long moment. Then inexplicably she began to laugh, a deep rumbling sound that shook the cargo bay. A human. Of course it would be a human. She stood, lifting the hatchling gently. Do you understand what you've done, Captain Torres? Committed about 50 felonies? You've bonded with a Cathara royal during his imprinting phase, Elsa explained. In our culture, the first being a hatchling bonds with becomes their oath companion, a sacred relationship that cannot be broken. You, human, have just become bonded to the future ruler of the Cathara sovereignty. Jixen blinked. I'm sorry, what? Zekthar chirped happily, breathing a small fireball that singed Jixen's sleeve in what was clearly meant to be affectionate. The Federation, Elsa continued, a smile creeping across her fearsome features, is never going to believe this. 6 months later, Jixen found himself standing in the grand hall of the Cathara homeworld, wearing ceremonial armor he still didn't quite understand. Beside him, Zekthar, now the size of a horse and still growing, rested his massive head on Jixen's shoulder. This is insane, Jixen muttered. Elsa, now his official liaison and friend, chuckled. Welcome to galactic politics, human. You played fetch with a prince. Now you help raise a king. Humanity, fuck yeah? Jixen offered weakly. Indeed, Elsa agreed. Indeed.